has decided to send a very stern message. And this is, of course, after accusations of American jets bombing an Iranian school. The World Health Organization has said that this actually amounts to a war crime on the part of America. It says that bombing a school is not a miscalculation. Killing a paramedic is not a miscalculation. It cannot be qualified or described as collateral damage. So when Pete Hegseth, the Department of War, on more than one occasion has been asked this question about the American attack on a school in which more than 150 people died, including many girl students, his response was that America is conducting an investigation to get to the bottom of the truth and to ascertain the circumstances in which this happened and whether or not that missile that struck the school was indeed an American missile. However, there have been investigations that have been launched by newspapers as well, investigative reports that have arrived at the conclusion that it could possibly be an American missile here. And now we also see the World Health Organization weighing in and claiming that what happened was in fact a war crime. Let me go across to Akanksha once again, who will take us through that response that's come in from the WHO about that attack on a school in which more than 150 people died. Many of them were girl students. Yes, Akanksha.
Absolutely. In fact, 2 weeks after that school in Minab in Iran was attacked, now here's a statement that is coming from Director General of WHO. In a social media post, he has mentioned that bombing a hospital or a school is not a miscalculation. Killing a paramedic is not collateral damage. Starving civilians is not negotiating tactic. These are war crimes, full stop. Call it what it is. Now, that's a big statement that is coming from the Director General of WHO. He has called what has happened in Iran as far as the attacks by Israel and US are concerned, specifically alluding to the bombing of the hospital and a school, saying that it is not miscalculation. These are war crimes, full stop. Call it what it is.
Right, thanks for that, Akanksha. So strong response coming in from the WHO. Let me go across to Srinjoy once again. But Srinjoy, whenever there have been reactions of this nature coming from different organizations associated with the UN, Trump in particular has been quite dismissive. So we can expect him to have a similar response this time. But the Americans, for the longest time, since the first week of this particular conflict, have said that they're conducting an investigation. Nobody knows what kind of investigation is being conducted. While they are at the receiving end of a lot of criticism now, with more evidence emerging that this could possibly have been an American missile indeed that targeted this particular civilian infrastructure in Minab.
Yes, the Americans are saying they are conducting an investigation, and the report of the investigation, the inquiry report, will be made public. But so far, the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has not said anything about it after that. What we know is that this attack was early on in the war, perhaps 10, 12 days ago, or even more. So clearly the Americans have had time to do this investigation and check where, if they fired that missile that hit the school. But this is something that the Americans say that they are investigating, so we have to await the report. But as you rightly said, the UN, the WHO has been very critical about this, and we've just heard what they had to say. But overall, the Americans say they have only hit military targets. Of course, the school is an issue, a big issue, but they have hit only, even Karg Island. President Trump is saying we haven't hit the oil infrastructure.
True.
We haven't hit the tanks. We haven't hit the pipelines. Yes. We've hit the Revolutionary Guard Corps headquarters and all their military installations there are there. So we have to see what the report finally says.
Absolutely. Specifically when it comes to the Minab school that's been targeted, it appears that the Americans themselves, including the Trump administration, is quite confused about this, because when he first tried to address this particular issue about accusations over a civilian infrastructure being hit, in which 168 people died, 110 were schoolgirls aged between 7 and 12, Trump Trump had stunningly claimed initially that it's a case of the Iranians hitting their own school. But there was a subsequent flip-flop on his part as well, where he said that he did not know enough about what actually happened. And later, he came up with another bizarre theory saying that the American-made missile was in fact being used by Iran. So it is indeed a bundle of contradictions as far as the American president himself is concerned over this particular incident. Let's listen into some reactions.
An American missile strike and a Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility?
Well, I
for
haven't
that strike?
seen it, and I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more, but whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic, it's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it.
Now, we're in the 16th day of the war in the Middle East. There's no visible end in sight. A day after American forces had targeted military infrastructure on Iran's Kharg Island, a critical hub for Iran, Iran has now vowed to fight on. The American president, however, has called it one of the most powerful bombing campaigns in the history of the Middle East. He's also claimed that American forces totally destroyed all military targets on Kharg Island. Iran, in turn, has threatened to reduce US-linked oil facilities to a pile of rubble or ashes if oil structures on the island were indeed attacked. It's not just this. Iran has also claimed that it's prepared for a 5-year-long war if required. It doesn't seem that the Americans are too bothered by that statement coming from Iran. The Trump administration has announced a $10 million bounty for any intelligence leading to the whereabouts of Iran's new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, and several other senior officials who are tied to the Revolutionary Guard Corps. So there's, of course, a bounty on his head right now. And Kharg Island, of course, has been at the receiving end of attacks on the part of the Americans. We have some more